Alright, so I gotta say, I mean, we're only like 2 months in, so I hesitate to make a lot of generalized statements. But I gotta say that so far, 2019, as it relates to the movies I've seen, that rhymes, has been a pleasant surprise for the most part. Several films that I've gone to see that I had no expectations for, or that looked horrible via the trailers, or you just look at it and go, oh, that's going to have problems. I left actually enjoying a lot. Kid Who Would Be King is one. And this one is a very pleasant surprise. I was not expecting it. I had my doubts about it. I was worried about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's hard to make a movie about wrestling because movies about wrestling are never sure where to make the cutoff between the real world and the staged world of professional wrestling. Where is this movie going to be a work and where is it going to be a shoot? For the uninitiated, for the folks who aren't wrestling fans, a work means it's planned, a shoot means it's not. And the other problem I had is that this movie is being brought to us by WWE Films, which concerns me. Just one, WWE Films until now has not really made a good movie. And it also concerns me that it's a WWE movie about a WWE wrestler going through the WWE system. So what that means is they are not going to do anything to hamper the good name of WWE. So you're not going to get or you feel like you're not going to get what my mom would call a warts and all kind of film. You're going to get kind of a glossy look at it. And I'd be lying if I said we didn't have a bit of that, but it was nowhere near as snowed over as I thought it was going to be. There are a couple of moments where they said something and you're like, okay, don't lie to me. But not too bad. And we'll talk about those as they come. So if you don't know, first of all, let's make a statement here. For those who don't know, and if you've been watching the show and you see the t-shirts I wear when it's warmer out, I am a wrestling fan. I have been a wrestling fan my entire life, pretty much. For all its craziness, for all its ugliness, I love it. I would rather watch a fantastic wrestling match than any Super Bowl. Give me a Bret Hart or an AJ Styles match, and I'm good to go. So therefore, going and seeing this movie, I don't know, just as a fan and knowing kind of some of the things I know, even though not firsthand, but just knowing background information about certain things, you're worried they're not going to get that warts and all kind of treatment. So that's that. But let's talk about the movie. So if you don't know, the movie is the true-ish account of the wrestler who goes by the stage name Paige. Goth kind of looking girl from England who really sparked off what they now call the women's revolution. And without giving too much WWE history, up until fairly recently, when the WWE had women's wrestlers, they were underwear models. You know, they were there to shake their tits, and, you know, you had a couple of strong wrestlers in there, you know, your Trish Stratuses, your Victorias, your Litas, and the others were athletic, but they were not wrestlers. But with Paige and kind of her generation of competitors, they actually started to train women's wrestlers, and they all kind of point at Paige as kind of that kickoff. So she's a girl from a wrestling family, you know, all of her, you know, her mother, her father, both of her brothers, you know, so it's a well-documented kind of thing with her. And this movie is kind of the true-ish story of her going from, you know, her family's little independent organization to, you know, the biggest fucking wrestling company on the planet and being its champion. So I gotta say, I was not expecting to like this movie, but damn if I didn't. Damn if I didn't. Warts and all, I loved this movie. And this movie has some warts. It's got some problems. But it's very heartfelt. So the main thrust of the story is that, you know, Paige, whose real name is Serena, something like that. They said it a couple times. It basically learned to wrestle with her brother Zach, and they both try out for the WWE. She gets taken, he doesn't, and it's kind of this parallel road that they're on of him dealing with the rejection of, you know, he worked for this his whole life, he worked for this and all this, and her dealing with the very tough life of a wrestler, of training to be that upper echelon. And I think the movie does a couple things really well. Number one, and even though it's not, like I say, a quote-unquote warts and all kind of story, it does do a very good job, I think, of depicting, and especially for those who are not fans, what these people have to go through to compete like that. You know, what they have to learn and what they have to do and all this other stuff, the sacrifices and the commitment that they have to make to compete like that. And it really does a good job of kind of showing that, you know, this is not easy. You know, people who go, oh, wrestling's fake, it's like, you know, people who go wrestling's fake are the same people that used to tell me when I was a figure skater. Yes, I was a figure skater, believe it or not. You can't tell to look at me now, but I used to be graceful. All right? You know, people telling me figure skating wasn't a real sport. The answer is, go fucking do it. Go fucking try it. Compete at the level I did and then tell me it's not a fucking sport. You know, people who say wrestling's fake, it's like, go fucking do it and, you know, live with the injuries and everything and then tell us it's fake. And the movie does a good job of really depicting that. And also kind of depicting the mental anguish it kind of would take on a person. Paige has a real identity crisis going in there because she's, you know, she's pale, she's got black hair, she's goth, she likes heavy metal, she's in there with, you know, all these kind of beautiful bleach blonde girls, and she doesn't know quite how to handle it. It does a nice job of that. It also does a really good job of depicting her brother's struggle to kind of find his place when, you know, that the dream is gone, when that, you know, they have some really great lines in here. I always heard the term a journeyman in terms of wrestling, but I never knew what it really meant. And you know, the trainer played by Vince Vaughn tells Paige, I didn't take your brother because he's a journeyman. He's there to make everyone else look good, but he doesn't have the charisma or whatever it is to get over, to get the fans on his side. He can make you look like $1 million, but he can't carry the weight. And there's a really great scene in there where Paige, you know, kind of having her identity crisis, goes back to England, and they're having the quintessential, you know, fallout with her brother, and they're yelling, and she's saying, you know, just because nobody's cheering your name doesn't mean what you do isn't important. You know, he taught a blind kid how to wrestle. I mean, that's fucking astonishing right there. That takes guts and talent. And apparently he did it, you know. So, and she, you know, calls him out on that. Says, you know, you taught a blind kid to wrestle. And again, I love the line. It was a line that really hit me. It was a line that really kind of, you know, took me back to one of my mentors. And just kind of that lesson of, you know, just because you're not famous doesn't mean the work you do doesn't matter. All right? So yeah, and the relationship between the two of them, I don't know either one of the actors' names, so I'm just going to call them Paige and Zach. So sorry. The chemistry and the real, you really feel the family bond in there. You do it with everybody playing the family, the mother, the father, you know, and the two of them. They do feel like a real family. It feels like a genuine family. And some of the best parts of the movie are where they're just bickering or chatting with each other or whatever. I mean, it's this neat kind of feeling of, yeah, we're weird, but we don't really give a shit. You know, we're happy, and you know, that's great. I also got to give big props. So I got to give biggest props to the young lady playing Paige, whatever her name is. And I'm sorry I don't know your name, young lady. But that's a tough role. Because not only is she doing the acting, the heavy lifting, you know, she's the emotional center of the film, but she's doing a lot of the physicality. She's in there doing a lot of the moves. And that takes a lot of training, and she's doing it. And I would bet they brought in a stunt double for some of it, but still, she's in there, you know, doing a lot of it. And it's like, you know, so she really pulls her weight and really... I would say I don't think this movie's going to do well. I'm sorry to say. But I would say if it did, this is the definition of a star turn. The young lady really holds this film up. I also got to give big props to Vince Vaughn, who plays the trainer at NXT. NXT being the developmental territory or the developmental program that WWE set up to kind of groom their next generation. You know, now it's kind of grown to its own brand, but, you know. Anyway, who kind of plays that, you know, he's like the John Lovitz character in A League of Their Own, only he's in almost the entire movie, you know. Yeah, he does a really nice job kind of playing the sarcastic, but, you know, really frank trainer. He's kind of telling you straight to your face, you need to, you know, buck up or whatever. I liked a lot of his stuff. So yeah, the film has a really good emotional center, and you do find yourself rooting for her, even though I knew how it ended. I'm again, wrestling fan. Because I know who Paige is, so obviously, you know, she makes it and does all this stuff. So I think if you're a wrestling fan, you're really going to dig this. And if you're not, and the off chance you're going to go see this and you're not a wrestling fan, I think it might give you an insight into kind of what the wrestling business is. Maybe not all of it, because again, there's an uglier side to it, but it does give a, you know, Paige herself has had a fairly rocky road. No, you know, I won't get into that. Speaking of Rocky, let's cover that little Brahma bull in the room. So yeah, The Rock's involvement in this. He's been featured very heavily in the trailers. He's on the fucking poster. And one of the things I was worried about is that this would be a Saint Rocky movie. You know, kind of like the character of Sean Combs was in the Notorious B.I.G. movie, because Puffy Combs was the producer, The Rock's the producer of this one. So if you watch the Notorious B.I.G. movie, you know, Puffy Combs comes in every so often to deliver us sage words of wisdom. Before we change the world, Big, we've got to change ourselves, kind of thing. You know, you're like, oh, thank you, Saint Puffy, for coming and giving us words of wisdom. And the trailers really build this up to make you think, okay, it's going to be, you know, Saint Rocky is going to come in and, you know, save the day. And to his credit, you know, he has two scenes, and that's it. The two scenes from the trailer, basically. If you've seen the trailer, you've seen his two scenes. And they could have probably cut the second scene, honestly. The first scene was kind of funny, but it was overplayed by the time I saw the movie, because I'd seen it in all the damn trailers. You know. So he showed great restraint in that. Is the movie perfect? No. There's structural problems and there's nitpick problems. I'll talk about the biggest structural problem. Again, when I started the review, I was talking about how wrestling movies, most of the time, and the only one I can think of that is an exception to this was the Mickey Rourke film, The Wrestler, from a few years back. They don't know where they want to draw the line between this is scripted, this is planned, this is this, and this is real. So the whole movie, we're shown this, you know, it's a business, it's an art, you know, it's a skill. They're learning not to hurt each other. They're learning to, you know, have stamina and all of that. The whole film, you know, there's a big falling out match with Paige and Zach, you know, where he goes off script, and it's a big thing. He went off script. How could you do that? You know, and he's really hurting her, you know. Okay, so they establish this. So they get to the end, and the end is the, you know, that big payoff in a sports movie where the plucky underdog goes out there and it's going to take on the champ. You know, it's Rocky taking on Apollo Creed. She's going out and taking on the Divas champion, which I hated that when they were doing that. And she's going to win. She wins in the end. But that whole match, they are treating like an actual match. Like they don't know the outcome. You know, they're treating her in the ring with it and her family watching. Come on, baby, come on, you know, like they don't know the outcome. Like they don't know what's going to happen, which is possible her family didn't when they were watching it. But you know, the film wants you to believe that we don't know what's going to happen, or the fact that she was booked to win the match wasn't something she was aware of going in. And it doesn't work. It takes away a little bit from, you know, it takes away a little bit because it takes you out of it. And they could have done it, you know. There's a great show, if you've never seen it and you're an actor, a great show called Slings and Arrows, a Canadian show about a theater company, and you know, each season is then putting on a new show. And the second season, they do Macbeth, and in one of the plot twists, the lead actor gets fired, so the understudy has to go on. So, you know, so this whole episode is the show with all these actors working together, and this scared shitless understudy working his heart out, all of them trying to glue this show together. And watching that, you get this thrill of accomplishment when the show ends, you know, and, you know, the one actor looks down at the understudy and says, "You did it, buddy." You know, and you're just like, oh. And they could have done something like that here, as opposed to, you know, trying to play it off like it was a real match. That doesn't work. Especially after you spent the entire film showing us it's, you know, it's an art, it's a dance, it's choreographed. You know. So that's my major structural problem. Every other structural problem I have is just that it's a little formulaic. And they sacrifice a lot in terms of the actual story to satisfy kind of the more cliche aspects of this kind of sports movie. For instance, one of the things they say is that, you know, it shows that Paige has trouble with promos, i.e. when you're on the mic and you're talking to the audience. And she's having the trouble in NXT, and she's going, you know, and when she gets called up and she's there in the middle of the ring and all the fans are staring, and she's you know, tongue-tied, and it's like, that's not really true. By the time Paige got called up to the main roster, she was the NXT Women's Champion. She was a pretty established star. They didn't just pluck this kid out of the training program, which is what they make it look like. They make it look like they just pulled her out of the training program and said, okay, now you're going to the big time, kid. When in fact she had several very successful years in their developmental program, NXT, and was their inaugural women's champion. And they didn't cover any of that. And again, I feel like they didn't have to sacrifice that part of her story just to fit the more cliche aspects of, you know, the underdog story. You know, they could have, even if they did it in montage, they could have done a whole thing about her, you know, being the, because I would think personally, I mean, I can't speak for her. Winning the big championship, yeah, has got to be the best thing. But being the first champion of something, I would think that would be just as important an accomplishment, and they don't even touch on it. And I think that's to the film's detriment. I think they could have done that and had been a little bit more true to life and not worried so much about just filling the fucking archetypes. So that's kind of a nitpick. Other little nitpicks, I had some real I had a real issue with one thing. It's such a stupid thing. So at the very beginning, Paige and Zach go to a tryout at SmackDown, one of the WWE shows, and they walk out onto the stage and they're kind of looking around, and the logo and everything on the back is for SmackDown Live, which is what they call it now. That's not what it was called then. It was just SmackDown. It had a different logo. So, I mean, obviously they were filming it like during the setup for an actual SmackDown Live taping, clearly. But, and I'm like, they were able to find, you know, the fucking old school NXT set. You couldn't have programmed an old school SmackDown logo back there for that one fucking scene? Seriously? You're serious? I'm also very sorry. I'm sorry for Paige for a lot of things in real life. One of the main things is she was always the Divas champion. I hated that. I liked it a lot better when they finally just made it the WWE Women's Champion, because that Divas belt was fucking hideous. And I felt very sorry for her that she didn't get to be the WWE Women's Champion. Sadly, and they don't cover this because they want to leave you on a high note for the film, which is the right thing to do. The film kind of comes out at a very, not so much a sad time, but kind of a bittersweet time. The actual Paige was it last year? It was fairly recently. I think it was this past fall. She had to retire because she got kicked in the back of the neck, and has a spinal injury. She can't go anymore. She just can't. It's unhealthy. It's unsafe. So that's kind of bittersweet. She was the kind of on-air GM character, but they've taken her off that. We don't know. I can't believe they'd fire her or release her with this movie out. That would look terrible. And one thing WWE doesn't need is more bad press. So, okay, real quick before I get to final grade, there's one thing I do got to talk about because I was thinking about this. So again, the warts and all treatment. We do get a bit of the gloss from the WWE in certain aspects. Obviously they're not going to put their more negative aspects out there. There's a scene where Paige is, at the NXT training center, the performance center, and she's working with girls who don't know how to wrestle. And one of the girls elbows her in the face and does it twice. Not on purpose, it's because she doesn't know what she's doing. So she elbows Paige in the face twice, and Paige turns around and smacks her. And the girl says, "What was that? It's a real smack." She says, "That's called a receipt. You did something wrong, you get a receipt. And that teaches you not to do it again." And there's this whole scene of Vince Vaughn going, we don't give receipts here. We don't give receipts in the WWE. Well, we're not, it's your bush end, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there going, bull fucking shit. I have seen it where a rookie does something and he makes a mistake and they throw that fucking guy to the wolves to be beaten down. There was one kid, he was challenged, short story, he was challenged on air to a shoot match. He was a rookie. And Kurt Angle, an Olympic gold medalist, challenged this kid to a shoot match. Well, this kid had ultimate fighting experience, and he wraps Angle up, and he's got him in an armbar, and Angle can't get out of it. And they had to think real fast to get Angle out of it, with any kind of dignity. And as punishment for this kid showing up Kurt Angle, they sent him out in the Royal Rumble to be chopped in the chest for like 2 to 3 solid minutes by 3 guys who fucking had some of the hardest hits in the business. So don't give me this shit, you don't give receipts. Don't give me this shit that, you're above it all. Don't fucking lie to me. So that's so that's just something I want to get off on, but this review's gone longer than a lot of these have in a while. Okay, so let's wrap this up. And, long story short, I really liked this movie. I liked this movie as a wrestling fan. I liked this movie as a, fan of underdog stories. And I think you can enjoy this movie even if you're not a wrestling fan. If you've ever seen Rocky or something like that, you can go to this movie and enjoy it. So final grade for Fighting With My Family. I'm going to say a B+. Nice, solid B+. It's a good film. I think it could have been better. I think if they'd been a little braver, I think it could have been better. But it is light years ahead of where I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be absolutely dreadful. I thought it was going to be cringeworthy. And I am very happy to be proven wrong on that fact. I enjoyed this movie. I felt that, euphoria that you want to feel when you go see a movie like this. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it is a good, and it is. I think it is appropriately. I think a good family movie. I think you could take your kids to see this. So yeah. So Fighting With My Family really surprised me in the best possible way. So yay for them. All right. So yeah, that's about all I got. So this wraps up my birthday week movie. Oh, I didn't wear my hat. I didn't bring my birthday hat. Aw, had to do the whole review again. No, just kidding. Anyway, so yeah, I turned 40 this week. And when you age, when you reach that kind of milestone, you kind of look at your life and you kind of think about, the things you're happy for and the things that, give you joy. And one of the things that gives me joy is doing these reviews. So if you watch these and you enjoy them, then thank you for letting me do what I love to do. And even if you don't, I'm going to keep doing it because Lord knows you can never shut me up. So here's to 40 more years of reviewing movies. So with that, I say thank you, and as always, and especially with weather like this, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.